Hey, hi, how's it going? If you're new here, welcome. My name is Becca, and I tell your own personal paranormal experiences in a story format. If you have a story that you'd like me to share and be featured on this channel, make sure to message me on Instagram. The link is in the bio. Without further ado, let's get into today's story. Jackie, Lauren, and Robin were extremely close friends. Their parents had gone to school together, and they lived relatively close together. All three of them were born the same year, so they had literally been with each other since they were in diapers. Now, Lauren and Robin lived in the exact same subdivision, and for years, Lauren and Robin's parents would harass Jackie's parents to move out of their subdivision and come into theirs. But Jackie's mom, Charlotte, was like, "We are close enough. It's only a 10-minute drive. You guys can suck it up." So a couple years go by, and Jackie's parents actually ended up getting a divorce. So Jackie's mom was looking for a new place to stay. So of course, Lauren and Robin's parents were on the hunt for a house that was for sale in their subdivision because they really wanted all three girls to be extremely close together. So Charlotte ends up getting a realtor, and she tells them, you know what, I really like to live in the same subdivision as my friends, so if we can try and look within this area, that would be really greatly appreciated. Charlotte tells her that I've been looking for months, and there's nothing really for sale in the area, but I'm hoping something pops up soon. The realtor explains to her that there is actually a house that is for sale in that subdivision. And very excitedly, Charlotte's like, which one? And the realtor was kind of hesitant to tell her about the house, but she told her that it had been on the market for 12 years. Nobody is really interested in buying it. It's in really great condition. The land is really nice. Maybe we should go just take a look at it and see if you're interested. So Charlotte's pretty curious. Why has this house not been sold for 12 years? And the realtor says, I really don't have a history on the home, but possibly due to the fact that it was built in the 50s and it's one of the older original establishments in the subdivision. So they hop in the car and they go look at the house, and Charlotte instantly falls in love. The layout of the house is beautiful, and even though it was built in the 50s, it's been really well maintained. So she speaks with her realtor and says, you know what, let's just lowball and see where they go from there. So she ends up putting in an offer that's $100,000 less than asking price. The realtor explains to her that that offer is almost an insult, and there's most likely going to be a rebuttal and a counter offer, and just trying to prepare Charlotte. So later that day, Charlotte's phone rings, and it's her realtor, and she picks up, and surprisingly, the owners of the home have accepted this ridiculously low offer. Without any questions asked, Charlotte thinks she just won the lottery, and a couple weeks later, her and Jackie move in. Lauren and Robin are ecstatic, as Jackie's house is literally within walking distance now. So a couple months goes by, they haven't really fully unpacked, there's still boxes everywhere, and they're just really taking their time moving into this new house, and Lauren and Robin and their parents all come over to Jackie's house. The parents are upstairs, they're just sitting around the table having a social gathering, and Lauren, Jackie, and Robin decide to go down to the basement. Now, the way that the basement was set up is when you went down the stairs to the basement, the stairs were pretty much the central point of the basement, and the basement pretty much surrounded the staircase going down. So the girls make their way down to the basement, and Jackie tells them, like, I'm so upset, I misplaced my Tamagotchi during the move, and I'd really like to find it. So Lauren and Robin are like, you know what, there's probably like 20 boxes down here. Why don't we just start going through them and see what we can find? So the way that Charlotte had positioned the boxes was they were along this one wall, and the one wall was the only wall in the house to have this vintage green wallpaper. So they start rummaging through the boxes and moving the boxes away from the wall, and Jackie noticed that where the wallpaper had been placed, it was almost sunken in, and when she took a couple steps back, she realized that there was an outline of what looked to be like a door. So Jackie shows Lauren and Robin, and Lauren and Robin agree, this looks like somebody covered up a door in your basement. So the three girls, really excited that they had possibly found like a hidden entranceway in her basement, start peeling back the wallpaper. After about 10 minutes of peeling back this wallpaper, they discover that somebody did indeed wallpaper over top of a door. The hinges had been removed, the doorknob had been removed, and the hole had been filled with this like spray foam, but there was a door there. So the girls, being extremely quiet because they don't want to get in trouble for destroying this wall, start prying on this door, and after about 10 minutes, they were finally able to get it open. Jackie peeks her head inside, and it's pitch black. You can't see absolutely anything. So she takes a couple steps inside this room, and this string kind of hits her in the face. So she feels for the string, and she pulls on it, and a light comes on. As soon as the light comes on, they realize that it's a smaller room. It's about a 10 by 10 room. And within this room, there's a table, and surrounding the table, there's 4 chairs. On this table, there's 6 candles that had been burnt because the wax had dripped onto the table. But in the center of the candles was a Ouija board. The girls kind of just stood there in shock and were like, what the hell is this? And Jackie's super excited. She's like, come on, guys, let's try it out. It's all set up for us. Lauren and Robin were super hesitant. They're like, this is really creepy. I don't think we should do this. But Jackie was very persistent. She's like, come on, what's the worst that could happen? So Jackie runs upstairs and sneakily walks into the kitchen, grabs a box of matches, and comes back down into the basement. And they light the candles sitting on the table. So with the candles lit, Jackie turns off the light. The planchette was sitting on the board, and Robin stops everything and says, guys, we all know that this can actually be serious. Maybe we should do a little bit of research. So Robin opens her phone and they find out that they have to do 3 circles to open the ceremony. And then they have to make sure that they never break contact with the planchette and that they have to say goodbye. So with that being known, they begin the session. So Jackie, Lauren, and Robin all place their 2 fingers very lightly on the planchette. They do 3 circles and begin their session. Jackie asked, is there anybody here that would like to speak with us? And after about 2 minutes of no activity, she asked again, is there anyone here that would like to speak to us? Now, how Jackie would go on to describe this, it was almost like the planchette started to vibrate. All 3 girls felt the vibration and the planchette began to move. All 3 girls stunned that this planchette is moving. They all look up while the planchette is still moving and they're looking at each other to be like, are you guys moving this? And all of them would say, no, we're not moving this. The planchette moved to N, then it moved to I, then it moved to C, and finally K. So Jackie, pretty shaken up, she's like, okay, so your name is Nick. Your name's Nick? And the planchette wouldn't do anything. It just stayed on K. So they asked more questions. How old are you? Where are you from? And again, nothing happened. It stayed on K. Then Robin finally piped up and asked, how did you die? And again, the planchette began to vibrate and it started moving. Again, all the girls are in complete shock at this point, and they know that none of them are moving this planchette. But the planchette continued to move from the K, and it moved to D, then it moved to A, and then it moved to D. So all the girls sat there in silence, and Jackie's like, okay, so your name is Nick, and your dad killed you? The planchette began to vibrate and very abruptly moved to yes. The second the planchette landed on yes, the planchette flew off the table, hit the wall, and all the candles blew out. Absolutely traumatized, all 3 girls let out an ear-piercing scream and ran upstairs. The parents were like, what the hell is going on here? And the girls would go on to explain what just happened. So the parents went downstairs and they discovered this room that they didn't even know was there, and they saw this Ouija board and the planchette was on the floor, and all of them were like, what happened in this house? So the next day, Charlotte, Jackie's mom, called the realtor and was like, hey, listen, we found this room. It has a Ouija board in it. Is there any way you can find the history of this home for me? And after a few weeks, the realtor called Charlotte. The realtor would go on to explain that the original owners of the establishment were Claire, John, and their 2-year-old son, Nicholas. She would also go on to say that after Nicholas's 2nd birthday, he was horrifically murdered by his father, John. The mother stayed in residence of that home for 25 years after the death of her son. Sadly, in 1978, Claire passed away from suicide within the home. The home was then put up for auction and the city purchased the house. Charlotte's realtor believes that because of the house's history is why Charlotte was able to get it for such a cheap cost. To this day, Charlotte still lives in this house, and she believes that that room was a way for Claire to speak to Nicholas.